The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. This is Sam Briggs, a representative of the Water Data Collaborative from the Isaac Walton League, and today we're going to hear from Adam Griggs. Just a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. Everyone is automatically on mute. If you would like to ask a question, feel free to type it in the questions box at any time. Unless they're particularly relevant to what Adam is talking about at that moment, we'll save them to the end and have question and answer. If you feel the need to ask your questions verbally, we can do that at the end. So you can just click raise your hand and we'll get to you. The only thing that I ask is that if you are calling or if you're listening on your computer, that you call in if you would like to ask a question verbally so we don't get any weird feedback. So we'll get started in just a minute. I'm going to repeat this spiel for folks who are trickling in, so bear with us and we will tune in just a second. All right, hi everyone, once again, welcome to the webinar. This is Sam Briggs, a representative of the Water Data Collaborative from the Isaac Walton League. Today we're going to hear from Adam Griggs from River Network. He's going to be talking about introducing the work of the Water Data Collaborative. A couple of housekeeping things before I turn it over to Adam. If you have any questions, if they're particularly relevant, I'll go ahead and toss them over to Adam as he's presenting and he can answer them right there. Otherwise, we will have question and answer at the end of the webinar. Feel free to type your questions into the questions box whenever and we will make sure to get to everyone's questions. If you would prefer to ask your question verbally, we can do that at the end as well. You can raise your hand and we will get to you and unmute you. Everybody is automatically on mute. My only request is that if you want to ask your question verbally, that you call in via a phone rather than use your computer's audio, because we have a tendency to get some weird feedback if we have too many folks on computer audio. So with that, thank you for attending our webinar, and I'm going to turn it over to Adam.
Thank you, Sam. So I'm Adam Griggs. I'm the science manager for River Network. And today we're going to be learning about two exciting new programs that have some really ambitious goals for changing the world of accessible water information. Today I am representing the Water Data Collaborative, which is a fairly new cooperative program that's been launched between an interesting array of partners. Sam Briggs is one of my partners here today on that program, and she's going to be helping me field the questions from the audience as she explained. Before we get started, I'd like to point out that this is the first of a four-part webinar series on the work of the Water Data Collaborative. Today will be an introduction to this program, and then the following three webinars are going to dive deeper on some of the work and resources that I will touch on today. So coming up next, webinar 2 is going to be focusing on study design, modern design elements that produce measurable results. That's coming up in 2 short days on the 18th. Then the following week, we are looking at building a bridge from monitoring to action. This is for data to action tools. And lastly, that should be webinar number 4, is conquering your data management monster. And this is going to be a webinar with myself and John Dawes from Chesapeake Commons on data management resources and tools. So for today's goals, we're going to be talking about the background on these two programs, the Internet of Water and the Water Data Collaborative. And then we're going to go a little bit deeper on the Water Data Collaborative, look at their individual goals, strategies, some of our work to date, and a little bit about where we're headed. So the Internet of Water and the Water Data Collaborative. Let's start off a little bit talking about technology and big data. Technology and big data are opening up a new world of big data. They fundamentally change the way that we access, share, and use information in our daily lives. From connecting with old friends to finding a new place to eat, platforms that leverage and connect vast arrays of data are serving us that data in ever more useful and detailed ways. In only about the last decade have we seen entire systems of information be revolutionized by the advent of certain technologies. In order to accomplish this transformation, though, data must establish many facets of integration, such as data standards, methods of data sharing, cloud-based storage resources, before they can develop accessible information applications. Technology in big water data isn't quite to where some of these other data products are. For the most part, that most water data isn't connected and accessible. Much of our water data, like these prairie potholes, is still very much siloed and not connected to each other. There are many reasons why we are still largely unable to find easy, succinct answers to questions about our water's health, abundance, and sustainability. The greatest challenges result from the great variety of ways that we collect and interpret data on our waters. Tens of thousands of individual data collectors across our nation collect data on thousands of different parameters with hundreds of different protocols. Much of this is driven by the natural diversity of our water systems and the different anthropogenic issues that our water systems face. Our regulatory system also includes a hierarchy of local, state, and federal government agencies, each of which may collect data differently for different purposes. It is not to say that these technologies in places where data is open don't exist, but for the most part, this is not added up to something that is on the whole providing unified data information to the public. So what do we do about these issues? In 2015, the Aspen Institute and the Nicholas School for Environmental Policy convened a series of conversations with a diverse array of stakeholders to focus their attention on discovering the reasons why most water data remains unconnected and inaccessible. They suggested that while standardization of methods was likely impossible, federation of data sources by an Internet of Water could still make that data relatable and discoverable. In 2017, they produced a report calling for an Internet of Water program that could enable open data, integrate existing public water data, and connect regional data sharing communities. In 2018, the Duke Nicholas Institute for Environmental Policy Solutions launched just that program titled the Internet of Water. Around the same time, in 2017, the Pisces Foundation decided to bring a challenge to several of its current water grantees and asked them how they would collaborate to empower NGO data producers with technologies and resources to ensure that their data will be included in a future of connected, discoverable water information. An initial work group was formed from those initial grantees, and the culmination of their research and strategizing would become the Water Data Collaborative. They set themselves on an initial task of answering that question, and a foremost step was to build a conceptual framework that demonstrates all the important tasks that must be completed to create data of a known quality and open access to it. The group used the framework to document existing resources and perform a gap and barrier analysis on the infrastructure that supports community water scientists. The culmination of their research and strategizing was the proposed development of a Water Data Collaborative program that could become a steward for open community water science initiatives. The Water Data Collaborative is a national partnership program dedicated to increasing the use and accessibility of community water science data. It is currently comprised of 3 types of partners: established networks of citizen science and volunteer scientists, such as the Isaac Walton League of America, Waterkeeper Alliance, and ourselves at the River Network. It has savvy nonprofit technology developers, including the Commons and the Conservation Innovation Center. And lastly, it also includes the stewards of established national open water data infrastructure, including EPA, QASHI, and the Duke Nicholas Institute. So why a Water Data Collaborative? This unique partnership will help ensure future technologies are developed with NGO end users at the table. It's also going to provide us with the reach to reach established networks of community water scientists through coordinated outreach through those existing networks, and to build representation for the NGO water science community among ongoing open water data efforts. So a little bit about how these two programs that got started at roughly the same time are now working together. Across the nation, we have a great number and variety of data producers that collect data. These are often very siloed from one another. Programs exist at federal agencies, tribes and First Nations, state programs, thousands of individual nonprofits and local governments, and also public data amongst water utilities, water districts, in addition to the research that's being done at our universities. Above these data producers sit these open data portals. The Water Quality Portal, the Central Data Exchange, the Consortium for the Universities for the Advancement of Hydrologic Sciences, WADE, and numerous other water data portals collect data from individual data users. The Internet of Water is going to focus on building relations between these different federated data portals and making this data linked and discoverable. Many of these data producers already contribute data to the various online data portals. Most of the federal programs, the tribes and First Nations, and the state programs already share their data to one or more of these portals. But most of the other data users are largely unrepresented in these open data repositories. The Internet of Water has a secondary goal of trying to encourage more of this public data to be shared up to these portals so that it can be linked, discovered, and accessed. The Water Data Collaborative is focusing on another one of these subsets of stakeholders of data producers, namely the thousands of nonprofits, NGOs, and the various citizen science programs they work through at state and local governments. In addition to this complementary strategy, the two programs will also share representatives on each other's advisory boards and collaborate on the development of new data resources and data use value demonstration projects. Now let's move a little bit into the work of the Water Data Collaborative. I'd like to start by defining what we mean by community water science. This term includes the more colloquial terms of citizen science and volunteer monitoring, but it is more inclusive, as not all monitors are either citizens or volunteers. In addition, the concept of community water science includes just that, a sense of community, monitoring of water resources that is performed by and for the people. And that community can also include the state and local governments, university researchers, and data collected by more typical government agencies. Our vision for community water science is a future of connected, rapid, discoverable water information that informs decision-making and protects public and ecological health at recognizable local levels. So our primary goal is to increase the quality and accessibility and use of NGO-collected water data. And this goal is accomplished through several strategies. First, we're looking to create a collaborative network of support for community water science. And we're looking to improve the data infrastructure that supports NGOs and community water science. And we want to increase the adoption of best practice resources and technologies. Some of our early work focused on documenting existing resources across the framework, not only those resources that exist in each of the individual steps, but also those offered by open data initiatives. All data producers have to go through the same series of steps, whether they're an individual NGO or a federal agency. In step one, they must design their program and prepare for data collection, document aspects of quality and how they're going to manage data and interpret it. In the second step, they go out and they actually collect the data. Step three, the data has to be managed. In step four, data is analyzed and visualized before it can inform action or be communicated with the public or guide restoration activities.
Hey, Adam.
Yeah.
We have a couple of questions here that are relevant, I think. The first one is, with respect to the goal of increasing the use of NGO-collected water quality data, by whom do you want to increase its use?
So that's an excellent question. We're looking at increasing the use not only for the individuals that are collecting the data themselves, but providing them with better tools to manage and analyze that data and communicate it. But also the secondary goal of putting that data at the same time in the hands of decision makers, so that that data can be used for even higher purposes, such as those that might be implemented under the Clean Water Act.
And then we had another question, which was, how does this program relate to the water quality portal? But you are going to cover that. So
yeah,
moving right along.
Yeah, that's a great question as well. And I just will point out that this effort will be working on improving the existing infrastructure that's already there and encouraging more people to reach those types of resources like the water data portal.
All right, thank you.
Sure, thank you. So we are using this framework to organize and provide access to best practice resources and document the advantages of open data systems. After all, once data is managed, if this data can be shared to these open data portals, it is then what is considered machine readable, which means it's in a standardized format, and we don't have to go through the complicated steps of designing individual statistical analyses and communication products. If data is all in the same format, we can build universal tools that convert that data into information. And we're already seeing a number of these tools come online that are built on or connect to some of those open data portals. We're also using the framework to document existing resources. So this is what that framework starts to look like if you start to populate it with some of the existing resources that are out there. Currently, resources exist on a number of websites operated by different service providers. In our coming work, we will begin to catalog these tools on the Water Data Collaborative website. We are also using this framework to design new resources. Where gaps exist, we are working to build new resources we hope will better serve community water scientists. Our initial work has been organized into 3 pilots, each focusing on a different section of the framework. Pilot A is focused on study design elements and program documentation. Pilot B is engaged with data management, analysis, and visualization. And Pilot C is building demonstration use cases from data-driven watersheds. If we took a look at some of the gap and barrier analysis on those first additional steps, what we find is there are an abundance of existing resources and providers that are providing that guidance. You can find guidance on a number of study designs. You can find inventories of equipment and methods like NEMI. You can find model quality assurance project plans. We're finding these resources existing at both federal, state, and NGO levels. And there's also an incredible variety of different monitoring equipment and protocols that are available. The overall sentiment is that there's too many resources and options and places to go for any one NGO to really properly invest the time that it takes to analyze and research and discover these tools and resources. And the required investment in this step is time consuming and complicated. Most of the volunteer monitoring programs that aren't meeting their highest uses of data comes from a lack of the necessary time to put into the study design to make sure that the program you're building will absolutely deliver you the uses that you want for your analysis, communication, and restoration prioritization. Our plans to serve better tools and resources along these steps of the framework, we're looking to strive for greater clarity and consistency in the products that are provided among different resource providers. We're also planning to launch a series of decision-based study design guidance modules that will direct folks to the resources that are most pertinent to their use concerns. And we're looking to start building a trainer and service provider network to help NGOs perform some of these more complicated tasks. The study design guidance module will be online. Like we said, it'll be decision-based. So it's going to help programs document what aspects of their monitoring program they have in place and help them identify their needs and direct them to different modules where they can then find additional resources and guidance to help them build the documentation for their program. So possible products would be monitoring plans, quality assurance project plans, data management plans, data delivery plans, and ultimately how the products that they want to communicate their science with will need to be designed and how their program will need to be designed to feed data into it. When we look at step 3 of the framework, data management, this is probably the #1 area that I say NGOs begin to have technical hurdles in completing the goals of their data monitoring program. There are a number of resources out there, but these usually have come at quite a high skill level. The more complicated someone's data is, the more complicated the data management tools are going to need to be for them to manage this data. So the DIY tools that are out there for simple data include MS Excel or Access products, and very advanced databases need to be built with SQL, for instance, or you may be looking at paid services that are in the cloud, such as Aquams or Equus. You also have options of whether or not you want to focus on cloud versus local data management. Our plans to provide new tools and resources in this area are going to focus on documenting the options that are available and providing case study examples of data management practices that are working, a number of trainings on best data management practices, including one that we have coming up in just a couple of weeks. And we're also providing new resources that we feel will fill some of the gaps in data management tools and resources. The first of these is a distributed access database that is being developed by the North Carolina Aquatic Data Hub, which is somewhat of a partner program to our efforts. This pilot distributed database is a system that will soon be released to North Carolina groups, and this is built for more technical users that need something that can document high levels of their program. So lots and lots of metadata. The system is going to be designed for passing data through WQX up to the Central Data Exchange in the Water Quality Portal. One of our flagship products that we've built in the last year, and the leads on this have been the Isaac Walton League, Chesapeake Commons, and the Waterkeeper Alliance, has been the development of the Clean Water Hub. The Clean Water Hub is a cloud-based data management service that's going to allow folks to upload their existing data into an online platform. This platform is being designed to serve the NGO communities in unique ways. First off, it's going to be entirely consumable. The whole thing the software will be posted up to GitHub, so for that those more technical users who would like to manage their own version of this software can do so. We're also going to be providing some data management services, or we will provide the services to manage the data that gets uploaded to this system. But the idea is that this system can be designed to be very forward-facing for the individual NGOs or those collaboratives that are monitoring it. The back end will provide capabilities to rebrand the system and update your logos and colors and fonts so that the end result is a product that looks unique to that organization. However, we're building something that is reproducible across organizations. The idea is to easily bring online new or existing monitoring sites, manage a group, and collect data of a known quality. The system will also be able to support macroinvertebrate counts and in addition to physical, habitat, and water chemistry parameters. And you'll be able to invite members of your monitoring team to join your organization on the service. And coming soon, the Clean Water Hub is working right now to build in the metadata handling data requirements so that the data can be shared with the Water Quality Exchange.
Adam, we had a question. Is the Clean Water Hub similar or different than Water Reporter? And they made a comment that the interface looks similar.
So the interface looks similar because the primary design group behind it is the same. Water Reporter is a product of Chesapeake Commons, and it is a product out there that is a forward-facing app and data collection mechanism for groups. And yes, there's a little bit of crossover between these two, whereas Water Reporter is probably better set up to manage campaigns, and the Clean Water Hub is going to be a little dialed back in some of the services, but be more about opening up some of those existing data sets. And Sam, I'd love it. You could also probably better answer that question than I if you had anything to add.
Yeah, so you mentioned that they're both products of Chesapeake Commons. Water Reporter right now is primarily used for smaller groups, and it's more flexible in the sense that it can accept a lot of different types of data sets. Clean Water Hub, on the other hand, is we're tailoring it to work more towards data of a known quality so that we can make those federal water quality exchange connections. Our hope is down the road also that we're going to build the connections between Water Reporter and the Clean Water Hub. So some of the data that is visualized within the Water Reporter platform can also show up within the Clean Water Hub. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you. So moving on into analysis, visualization, and communication steps of the framework. Right behind data management, this is probably the second area that NGO groups and community water scientists probably face the largest technical hurdles. While there are an incredible abundance of free or low-cost options for doing data visualizations, these often come with pretty steep technical learning curves, and also navigating the number of options and technologies that are available can be quite difficult, especially considering how fast these technologies are changing. And additionally, a lot of these are typically not customized for water analyses, so they're more generalized data visualization software. Some of the examples out there that exist include Excel, Google Data Studio, a number of R products and packages, Plotly, Tableau, High Charts, and other mapping-based applications to visualize your data. Our plans in this group is to document as best we can the options that are available and provide not only case study examples, but on the basis of some of this machine readable data that will be organized in known and published formats, the resources that we share should be readily consumable between groups as long as they manage and organize their data in a similar structure. So we also plan to produce open visualization resources. And in addition, the Clean Water Hub and Water Reporter have built-in data visualization services.
Adam, we had a question about the price to participate.
So some of the products that we will be developing, recognizing the NGO community oftentimes faces significant financial hurdles to adopting some of these practices. We're always trying to provide somewhat of a mix of performance and cost. A lot of the tools that we're putting out there are completely consumable, free, and open access resources. A lot of these are designed on currently available free resources, but we are tweaking and adjusting them to provide templates to give folks a heads up on starting to adopt some of these free tools. In services like the Clean Water Hub or Water Reporter, our plan is to fund most of the development through grants, and we are engaging our community through licensing and maintenance agreements. So these will be low cost in the order of somewhere between $10 to $40 a month, depending upon the services that you're looking for, in order to get some of that cloud-based data management, support for data migration, protocol programming, things of that nature.
Thank you.
So one example of some of the case study examples for these free applications that we would like to try to promote and include and increase adoption of. This example comes from the New River Conservancy, which is a partner of River Networks on the North Carolina Aquatic Data Hub, one of our kind of pilot test cases for where we can start to implement some of the water data collaborative strategies. They've leveraged a number of Google products in their water monitoring program. Between Google Forms, Google Maps, and Google Data Studio, they're able to put in their hands of their monitors a cell phone app for entering data in the field, and in real time that data then flows to a Google data sheet and immediately updates their centralized website using Google Data Studio. So again, these are completely free products. This product itself, Google Data Studio, only came out in about the last 6 months or so, still released as a beta version. So I've only found a few examples of groups that are starting to take advantage of this resource. At higher levels for some of the maintained products that we're developing, so these would be the ones that come at either no to low cost or open source for the software, are the built-in data analysis services that we'll find inside the Clean Water Hub. And generally what we're looking at here is nice, attractive displays of time series trend plots of individual stations and parameters on a geo-mapping interface. And lastly, in step 5, our work to show data to action products or really demonstrate the power of a data-driven river restoration effort is being led by the Conservation Innovation Center. So these guys are looking to develop some consumable resources, but mostly case study examples of showing the power of a data-driven watershed. So where we have examples where citizen science data has been properly documented and can be then leveraged and aligned with other data sets, including either federal data sets or maybe more localized data sets produced by state or regional agencies or even a county government. And some of the examples that the Conservation Innovation Center is working up, they include melding citizen science data on a number of water quality parameters to augment the data that was already in the water quality portal so that they can get a more detailed look at watershed and prescribe some best practice solutions. In the case of the South River, doing an investigation to identify where potentially leaking septic tanks were located by matching up some low cover land resolution data and some parcel data as well. One of our main strategies to implement the work of the Water Data Collaborative is going to be building a network of support for community water scientists. Our plan is to try to connect to and document community watershed science support where it currently exists. We have surveyed a number of the state agencies through a States of the Citizen Science survey, and we plan to try to track regions and programs to show where NGO data currently is or isn't connected and available. Through all the steps of the framework and all the key pieces of support and technology, we're looking to see where these services and tools and resources might exist at the local level and identify gaps where these services do not exist. Then working with existing on-the-ground efforts to support greater access to and use of NGO data and foster additional development of the network to try to fill some of those gaps. One example of our initial survey of the EPA regions and states, so far we received back about 41 responses, and at least 31 states have reported having some type of a sponsored citizen science program. So we're also going back and seeing if those states provide adoptable quality assurance project plans, if they provide data management resources, because the idea is that we can't build too many centralized products. Our work is too specialized to restore watersheds. So much of this will be accomplished by working with on-the-ground partners who are already providing support and helping them make sure the support they are providing reaches the highest data uses for both the data producers and data users. Lastly, our third strategy is to support the improvements to the data infrastructures themselves. By joining forces in a water data collaborative, we can gain a seat at the table in some of these large efforts that are working to federate open data systems under the Internet of Water guidance. So these partners include EPA, Central Data Exchange, QASHI, the Internet of Water, a number of state portals that already exist. And as opportunities arise to develop new products or new data standards, the idea is that we can be at the table to make sure that what gets implemented and designed for an open water data future will include what we feel are the biggest network of data producers, which are the NGOs. If you'd like to connect to the Water Data Collaborative, you can head to our website, waterdatacollaborative.org. There we have a contact field, and right now we're basically collecting information from anyone who might be interested in either receiving support, getting access to best case resources, or if you happen to be one of these service providers or one of these regional efforts that is working to organize data for your area, we would love to hear from you as well. So please do visit our website and fill out the contact form and indicate how you might want to be interacting with the Water Data Collaborative. So just a little bit about our timeline so far, where we've been headed. Again, we just got started in early 2018, fleshing out the initial framework, performing gap and barrier analysis, and planning and developing this program and its governance and structure. And today we are in the process of developing and piloting some of these tools and best practices that I've kind of just touched on a little bit today, and we're beginning to establish the Water Data Collaborative Hub Network. In this summer, we hope to head into our third phase where we begin to recruit, expand, and to disseminate some of these best practices, grow our lists of regional service providers, grow our lists of networks and contacts, that all of us working collaboratively to build a better future for citizen science data. We're going to continue to augment the tools that we've built so far and build additional tools and begin to publicize the impacts of community water science data to help build and strengthen the network. I'd be remiss in my primary duties at River Network if I didn't mention River Rally, coming up June 21st to the 24th in Cleveland, Ohio. And I want to thank everyone for their attendance today. We're going to move to a discussion and question and answer session period now. And I also wanted to turn you on to a couple of links for additional resources. Well, that's the incorrect website there, but the Water Data Collaborative can be found at waterdatacollaborative.org, and the Clean Water Hub can be found at cleanwaterhub.org. And we're also going to ask if you could answer the survey, tinyurl.com, RN webinar survey. We'll also paste a link in this discussion box, and it'll also be included in the outgoing email that you'll receive at the end of this webinar. So Sam, do we have any additional questions from the audience, or we can open up now for Q&A as well?
Yeah, so folks, if you have any additional questions, you can either type them in and I will relay them to Adam, or you can raise your hand if you're connected via phone and we can unmute you so you can ask your question. We have a couple of questions right now, Adam. The first is a specific data question. Linking stream flow to water quality data increases the value of the data. Will this connection be a part of your effort?
So absolutely and no, because so that is part of the work that will be happening through the Internet of Water and their higher level engagement to start federating and connecting some of the existing sources of water data. So for instance, the NWIS portal, which manages and holds all of the data that's connected by the USGS Gauge network, that data is already connected through some means to the more in situ sample collection data that's in the water quality portal. So those connections are being maintained and built at a higher level. And the nice thing about the Water Data Collaborative is that we only need to work to help our groups reach those open data repositories, and the connection of that data and the better interpretation of that data is going to be handled by Internet of Water and partners that are working to provide that stewardship to those online data repositories.
Awesome. We had another question. Do you foresee this as mainly surface water data collection or also groundwater monitoring?
So kind of the same answer to the last question. There are already existing portals, USGS Groundwater Monitoring Network, where that data is already housed in an open data repository, and the standards for supplying groundwater data already exist. So again, that data will be linked and federated through Internet of Water exercises. And then once those linkages are built, that's when we can start to see those types of data connections come back down to the user in the form of their different information applications.
Awesome. We had another question, which is a great one. How do you plan to manage QA/QC of submitted data?
So that's an excellent question. We have to admit that probably a great chunk of the current NGO collected water data that's out there may or may not be properly documented with proper quality assessment, quality control procedures, and what you might find in a quality assurance project plan. So some of the different products that we're going to be releasing are going to be helping groups to start building more of that quality documentation. So for instance, the study design modules will not only help you figure out what is the proper study to answer your questions, but at the same time, really force you to build that documentation that others will need if they want to be able to use your information. And also having the overarching goal of reaching these open data repositories, there's a lot of quality assurance that has to be documented in place before the data can be submitted to those portals. We see that as one of the biggest issues for being able to currently bring in a lot of the existing data. It's to go back and properly document some of the quality control, or to start really working with the community to start recognizing the importance of building in their quality assessment, quality control metadata. We will not be able to bring in any information into some of these portals unless it has the proper quality assurance documentation already in place. So again, a lot of our efforts are really going to be about helping groups build in that documentation.
Yeah, so just to add to that, Adam, specifically for the Clean Water Hub, as we're incorporating more protocols, it's going to be reliant on the group and the protocol to have that QA/QC documentation, and we're going to make sure that we have a place within the hub to house that, so that that data has that quality stamp on it rather than just being ambiguous data points. Let's see, here's a long one. I have been collecting water quality data for 5 years with students and have used EPA level equipment and hundreds of data points. I'm looking for ways to make this data open, public, and accessible. Do you think it would be possible for a group as small as a high school to use these products? Would we be better off partnering with a larger network or nonprofit?
So I'll say that answer somewhat depends on what you want to do with your data, and also what existing networks or partners you might have available to you. A lot of the tools that we're going to be sharing, much like the use case from the New River Conservancy, most likely your data would be able to plug into that same system very well, just to make the data open and accessible to your community. The harder part is making your data open and accessible in some of these larger data portals. And in those cases, the services and the tools that you'll need to deploy to build in that documentation, they do come with a larger requirement of work and knowledge to get those systems into place. But again, some of the products that we're building, like the Clean Water Hub, are going to be very user-friendly. So the same types of integrations and technologies that help us make sense of, say, road data and medical data today, we're trying to provide the same types of technologies and interfaces for water data.
All right, so then we had another question. Will the CoOps for participating groups be available?
That is one of our plans as we build in these modules for study design documentation. One piece that I did not mention that goes along with that is we want to start building a place where groups can actually demonstrate that their program is documented. So for instance, if a group wants to go to a decision maker that is potentially interested in their data, or a foundation looking for funding for their monitoring program is required to see some of that documentation. The services we provide will allow people to upload just those types of aspects of their monitoring program so that we can see that their monitoring program has been properly designed and documented. And then others will be able to get access to those documents and see how documented a certain program may be.
All right. How do you plan to standardize an understanding of complex and unfortunately consistently misunderstood data types? An example, you want to collect total nitrogen and a user understands this as nitrate. Same could be said for total suspended solids and sediment load.
Yeah, another excellent question from Lynn. So a great deal of this is going to have to come with standardization is the building of our terms and defining exactly what we mean by these and linking into some of the systems that do maintain these lists of parameters and standards. So for instance, the distributed access database that we're building, it actually reaches out directly to the NEMI, the National Environmental Methods Inventory, and hits their web service for updated lists of parameters and methods. And again, there's still a lot of work to be done. For those folks that have investigated things, particularly things like nitrogen species, there are many, many different ways to collect that type of information and many names that it might be called under. So these are large problems, I kind of think, facing our entire community of water monitors. And we're not the only ones working on this. So certain aspects like building in standardization and naming convention, these are things that are going on at, say, the National Water Quality Monitoring Council, Internet of Water, and a lot of the other stewards. What we really have to do is support those efforts, let them know what the user community finds confusing, and support their future development to make sure that we're building towards a better consensus understanding of what our parameters are and what they're collecting.
Thank you. What metadata standard are you planning to use?
So that also depends upon where the data might flow to. So for instance, one of the ones that we know best at the moment would be WQX. It's essentially a metadata standard if you want to share data to the central data exchange and have your data appear in the water quality portal. So for those groups that have that goal, either they have some federal funding or they have the goal to have state agencies use their data for decision-making or listing purposes, that will be the best standard for them to try to set as a goal for documenting their program. Other data sets, that may not be the best place to go. For instance, if you have real-time monitoring data and a probe that's installed somewhere, say collecting a measurement every 1 minute, that data is structured very differently. And currently the best open data standards for sharing and accessing that data are housed at Quashi, one of our other partners, under their Water ML standard. And again, there's other standards, say, for just recreational data. For those of you out there that are monitoring bacteria, and that's data that we want to have shared as quickly as possible because there are recreational health concerns. The organization in Canada, the Swim Drink Fish, that runs Swim Guide, they published an open data standard for sharing recreational health data. So a simple data standard that will allow that data to be shared and discoverable as quickly as possible so that that data can end up in public-facing apps. So it depends a little bit upon what your goals are and what type of data you're collecting.
Will a CoOps be required to participate?
So again, a CoOP, that question will ultimately depend upon what your data use goals are. Currently, you can submit data to say the Water Data Exchange without uploading a CoOP. These things are probably going to become more required in the future. you need many of the elements that might be inside a CoOP, as far as things that document your equipment and your methods and your protocols. But so far, I don't know if QApps are absolutely required to participate. It really depends upon what your data use goals are and the protocols that you're deploying.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. Some of the pilot resources that we're building here are meant to cover a lot of the different bases and meet groups where they are. So the study design platform is going to help folks document what they need to actually write a CoOP. And then as far as, the data solutions, the Clean Water Hub, our hope is that it'll include protocols that have CoOPs, but it can also be flexible enough to visualize protocols without CoOPs. Water Reporter is designed to be really flexible, so it can visualize, data sources without any documentation of, metadata and the quality assurance. But then, that data is not data we're necessarily going to send off to the Water Quality Exchange. So that's going to depend on the user and their intention. Here's a long one. Our state is sharing data as part of some of these new larger data portals like Water Quality Exchange, but are not showing that the data was collected by our citizen scientists. Good that our data is being accepted by our state, but not so good from the purpose of being able to fundraise for our monitoring programs. Are others having this problem? How can we better make sure metadata is attached to this water quality data?
So this is a problem I have heard of from users that are submitting large amounts of citizen science data to the Water Quality Exchange. And this is occurring because they are working with their state agency partners on managing and then submitting that data. The way the Water Quality Exchange is set up, you have to create user profiles and get pins and access and to that exchange platform. It can be done so that you can still have that same person that's at the state agency be submitting your data, but if you want that data to show up as it's coming from a nonprofit or a citizen science organization, they will just have to set up a whole new account and profile and make sure that the data they are submitting is then sent from that profile. Where this becomes complicated is when these states are already organizing and managing the data along with their own and are doing one single batch upload from their state, including the public and the private data, up to Water Data Exchange. So this is an issue. There are some ways around it. And we've already had some conversations with the EPA to get a better idea of how much that data that's in there is actually community water science data collected by NGOs and simply reported as being collected by the states.
All right. Quick question. Can you repeat which program was using the Google Forms and Google Data Studio and where to learn more about this method?
Yeah, so that was New River Conservancy, and if you want to learn more about that method, you can actually reach out to me. I turned them on to that, and then he came back to me 2 weeks later with that excellent example, and I said, "Thank you. Now I've got a case study." So I'm happy to tell people a little bit more about using some of those free tools. In addition to that one, I have a number of other free tools for that people might be interested in for either data management or data visualization. But that's a nice, clean little system using tools that people are already familiar with from a company that we've already pretty much given our souls to. So thanks to our Google overlords for building us these types of systems that we can use for free.
All right, Tamara from the Maritime Alliance in San Diego is wondering, what role, if any, do you see industry/businesses playing in the Water Data Collaborative?
Another excellent question. So if we go back all the way back to the beginning of the presentation where we talked about some of the issues for why hasn't this happened to water data yet. Obviously, some of the big tech giants out there in Silicon Valley, they would probably be able to whip this together pretty soon, given their capabilities that they've already demonstrated. The issue is that, to be honest, water data doesn't have, we're unsure of its valuation yet, or the use case and the valuation of water data hasn't been properly demonstrated. So if they could figure out how to turn a buck on it, they would. And so far, people haven't been able to figure out how to get them to the table or make that demonstration of value to them. So at this point, we keep trying to engage industry as best as possible. That's still a long-term strategy and goal. But we're working on some of the valuation questions first in order to really help facilitate those conversations.
All right, so Jennifer Epstein had originally asked, with respect to the goal of increasing use of NGO collected water quality data, by whom do you want to increase its use, which you had answered. And then she had a follow-up that said, I am definitely interested in a list of these data apps and similar systems. How can I make sure I get that?
So for the immediate few weeks, some of this information you'll find on the River Network website. You can search River Science Resource Portal on Google, and that should come up. It's a little bit buried in our website. Over the next few months, we have plans to really transfer all of those types of collated resources over to the Water Data Collaborative website, where we're going to go ahead and flesh out a lot more of those categories that are still left undeveloped on the current resource database. So if you have an immediate need, you can go head over there, see if you find what you're looking for. You can also feel free to send me a question. And in the somewhat near future, we hope to have all of these different types of free and open access resources documented with case studies on the Water Data Collaborative website.
All right. Tamara says thank you, and I don't see any other questions.
All right. Well, I really appreciate everyone attending the webinar today. Before you run off, I'm going to go ahead and paste our survey into the chat box so that folks can see that. I do ask you to fill out the survey. That's going to help us figure out if we're on track with these webinars and we're delivering the information correctly. Again, also, please do go to the Water Data Collaborative website. If you want more information, if you want to remain connected, we're going to start sending out kind of quarterly newsletter announcements of new resources and new opportunities. So do head over there and fill out that contact form. We'd appreciate that greatly. And if that's it, I really want to thank everyone for attending. And with that, I think we're going to close the webinar. Do remember we have 3 more coming up in the next couple of weeks. You can find the registration information for those webinars as well on the Water Data Collaborative website.
All right.
Thank you. Just looking how to close the webinar. Thank you, everyone.